Welcome to this session, State-Aligned Grammar Skills and Ways to Effectively Teach Them. I'm Robin Nixon, Pre-K through 5th grade ELA Social Studies Consulting Teacher, and I will be your presenter for this session. Let's begin by reviewing our learning intentions and success criteria for this session. Our learning intention is to learn the grammar skills and resources for teaching grammar at your grade level or grade levels. And you'll know that you're successful when you can list specific grammar skills for the grade level or levels you teach, know district resources for grammar, and list ways to effectively teach grammar. During this presentation, there will be places for you to stop, pause, and reflect on your new learning during this presentation. During these times, the goal is for you to process that learning and determine how you can apply it to your classroom. So let's begin with a stop, pause, and reflect. In just a moment, you're going to pause the video and reflect on how you would answer these three questions. First of all, can you list the required grammar skills for the grade level or grade levels that you teach? Do you specifically teach grammar to your students during the school day, during the school week, and during the school year? And how are you teaching grammar? So I'd like you to take a moment to pause the video, reflect on these answers, and when you're ready, start the video and proceed to the next slide. And we know that grammar is important for all students. We want solid grammar instruction starting in grades K and continuing on all the way through grade 5. So you might be asking, where do you find the grammar standards? Well, I'm glad you asked. To find the grammar standards, we have several places that we can find those. Number one, you can go to the KSDE website, and you can go to the Language Arts Standards and choose the 2017 standards for English Language Arts. And it will take you right to those standards. Now, in your CDM curriculum guides, you also have these listed for your grade level. If you go to your CDM grade level booklet and you go to the writing standards, you will be able to also find these grammar standards. So they have been provided for you in your CDM booklet. But should you not have that booklet, this will show you how you can also get to those from the KSDE website. And once in that document, it's going to take you to a hyperdoc link to a PDF of the document. And it says Kansas Standards for English Language Arts. And this will take you to all of the standards for your grade level. And what you're going to be looking for are the grammar standards within the writing standard. The example that you see on the screen is from first grade. And notice that it tells us use common, proper, and possessive nouns when writing, singular and plural noun, personal, possessive, and indefinite pronouns. So as we look at this list, the state has listed those specifically for us. We just need to know where to find them, and they are always within the writing standards. So I have included for you a bit.ly link, and this bit.ly link will take you to the exact place that you need to go to find a link that I have created for you that talks about the scope and sequence of grammar skills in grades K through 5. So as we're talking, I'd love you to pull up this document, and I'm also going to walk you through what happens once you get to this bit.ly. So once you get here, you're going to get to a PDF, and on the screen across the top, you're going to see kindergarten, first grade, all the way through 5th grade. On the right-hand column, I have put for you grammar. So you'll see nouns, pronouns, verbs, etc. And then you'll go down to punctuation, capitalization, ending punctuation, commas, etc. And what this document is going to do is it's going to show you exactly what that skill looks like and what are the requirements for your grade. So for example, the first grammar skill is nouns. And you'll see in kindergarten, it simply says use frequently occurring nouns in writing. So that one's pretty open-ended. We want them just to be familiar that nouns are people, places, and things. In first grade, notice that we're moving to common, proper, possessive, singular, plural. And we saw that in the standards that we just saw for the state. Notice in second grade, we're adding collective nouns, plural nouns. In third grade, they are learning regular, irregular, and abstract nouns. So this is going to show you the scope and sequence of grammar skills throughout the elementary grades. Now, why is this important? Because you need to know exactly what you're required to teach for your grade level. And so if you go to this bit.ly, you will be able to print off this document to keep for easy reference as you are working on grammar skills for your grade level. So let's dive in a little bit more into scope and sequence. So you might be asking, why do I need to know the grammar standards for my grade level? Well, let's look at the answers to that question. Number 1, in grades 3 through 5, these standards are assessed. Please remember that the state assessment is not just a reading assessment, but a language arts assessment. So 1/3 of the state assessment is focused around grammar, punctuation, and those areas. So it is assessed, and we want to make sure that you are assessing your students on the grade level standards. So if I'm a third grade teacher, I know exactly what students will be tested on in the spring. And the same thing for fourth and fifth. But we know that as third to fifth grade teachers, we also rely on our K through 2 teachers to teach those required skills in their grade level so that we can build upon them in the intermediate grades. It's also important because the state has told us exactly what skills are to be the most essential for instruction. So it's going to tell us these are what we are assessed on, and this is what we need to also be teaching. Now, does that mean that we're only teaching those grammar skills? Not necessarily. Perhaps you need to review some grammar skills from earlier grades, or you have students that have mastered all of those and they're ready for enrichment. Also, we know what grade level standards for grammar we need to assess. And this assessing can occur formally or informally. So we want to be sure that we're assessing students' progress with grade level grammar and punctuation standards. It also prevents teachers from guessing at what standards to teach. So I'm not saying I'm a second grade teacher, I don't know what grammar to teach, so I'm just going to pick what I think is important. This way we're also having uniformity across the grade level and across the state. We know that all second grade teachers, or students, are learning collective nouns, for example. So we don't want to guess. The state has told us exactly what we need to be teaching. And it, as I alluded to earlier, it allows continuity from school to school concerning grammar skills to teach and assess. So if a student moves within the district, we can guarantee that they are being taught and assessed on the grade level standards from the state document. So as a teacher, why would you need to know the grammar standards that come before and after the grade level that you teach? So if you're a third grade teacher, why do you need to know the grammar and punctuation standards in second and fourth? Let's look at the answer. First of all, it helps you to know the grammar skills that students should come to you possessing. So if I'm a second grade teacher, I know that students in first grade have learned common and proper nouns, for example. It also provides a way to provide extension in subsequent grade level skills. Also, if gaps exist in grammar, you will know which standards to reteach to students. So if you're coming in with a grade level and they seem to be lacking some grammar skills, you can go back, for example, as a fourth grade teacher, go back to the third grade skills and fill in those gaps and then add on to your fourth grade standards. So let's take a moment now to pause the video in just a moment and reflect on your answer to these 3 questions. Number 1, what new learning did you gain so far? Perhaps it was the scope and sequence of the grammar skills and the grammar skills to teach for your given grade level. How will you use this new learning going forward in the school year? And what questions do you have, or how do you want to extend your learning on what we've learned about the scope and sequence of grammar skills? So take a moment to pause the video, reflect on the answer to those questions, and when you're ready, proceed to the next slide. I hope you had a great time reflecting on your new learning. Perhaps you learned about the specific grammar skills for your grade level. And hopefully, if you did, that's great information going forward for you. So now we're going to turn our attention to some of the district resources that we have for teaching grammar. The first one is MobyMax. And MobyMax will help to assign skills, and it will also help to assign tests to students for grammar. So MobyMax is our first resource. So we're going to take a moment to look at MobyMax and how we can use the grammar sections of that program to help teach grammar to our students. So let's take a moment to look at MobyMax and how you can use this to assist with teaching grammar in your classroom. So when you log into your Clever class, you will see the icon that says MobyMax. So we're going to click on MobyMax. And it's going to take us to our login screen. And we are going to be under the Differentiated Learning tab. And to go to grammar and punctuation and things like that, you will be going down to the program called Language Arts, and it's over on mine, it's on the right hand side, and it says Language Arts and it says Language. Now you can also access it by the menu on the left hand side, and it looks like this, and you'll see where my mouse is, and it says all K through 8 subjects, math, ELA. We want to go to ELA, and notice that it will take me to this tab as well. If I do that, it takes me to the left hand side right here that says language. So you're looking for language. So when I click on language, I'm going to get to a screen that looks like this. Along the top, you'll see snapshot, progress, placement, lessons, tests, and so on. We can go to lessons, and we can come down here to the gray tab where it says assign. Now, I'm just going to hit assign to the entire class, and what we can do is we can search within these grade levels. Now, if I go to kindergarten, notice that it starts off with letters of the alphabet, and notice that we did have nouns at kindergarten. So if I went in here to nouns, we see identify nouns that name people, identify nouns that name places, and so on. So it's just as easy as this. So I can click here, and I can look at the questions that I see for the students and that the students will see. So I could assign this by clicking select and assigning it to my students, and then it would push it out. Or perhaps I even want to pull this up and do it with the students as a whole. Either option would work. So it is that easy to assign a lesson to students within MobyMax. I can also come over here to the sounds tab, or the test tab, excuse me, and I can click assign new test. So if you've been teaching a skill, you can come over here and assign a test. So I can pick a grade level, and I can click and assign that way. Now, something else that we can do is to think about is this. Perhaps MobyMax has a skill that they've put in a different grade level than where the state of Kansas has. So for example, collective nouns, even though it's second grade for the state of Kansas, it might not be in second grade on MobyMax. So keep in mind that you have the option of assigning skills and lessons, tests and lessons off grade level. Now let's go back to the home button for just a moment. Perhaps you've been teaching a skill in class and you want to assess it. You could assess it in MobyMax. And when you go back to your home screen, right now we're in the Differentiated Learning tab. The middle tab says Assessment. If we click on Assessment, we can do a quick test or we can do a skills checker. So we can click Skills Test. We can create a new test. We can add problems. And we can come down here. And notice I could search, I could put in collective nouns. And you'll see that when I do that, it's pulling up collective nouns right here. So I can click on one of these. And we would not want to assign all 20 problems. Perhaps you want to assign 5, and you could go through here and select the 5 questions that you want to assess your students on. So you can assign a test or a quiz that way. You can also assign a skill checker. So we were in quick tests, and you can come down here to skill checker, and do the very same item. Select your students. Perhaps I wanted these 2 students. And I can hit the next button. And then I can assign tests to just specific students. So those are some of the ways that you could use MobyMax within your classroom as you're teaching grammar or even reviewing grammar. So MobyMax is as simple as that. We just spent a few minutes looking at MobyMax for grammar in your classroom. Another amazing district resource that if you're a 4th or 5th grade teacher, possibly even 3rd grade, that you'll want to consider for your classroom is called No Red Ink. And this is a phenomenal resource for grammar in your intermediate classroom. Now, in No Red Ink, students will take a diagnostic placement test. And then based on this diagnostic placement test, you can have students working at their own pace, or you can create assignments for students to complete. And you can also assign tests to students to complete as well. So I want to spend just a few moments digging into No Red Ink because this is such a great resource for your intermediate classroom. Once you log into Clever, you're going to look for the icon that is the white N in the pink square. It says No Red Ink. So once you click on this icon, it's going to take you to the classes that you have and that are available. So one of the great things about this program is that when students set up their accounts, it asks them a series of questions like, what is your name? What is your favorite book? What is your favorite movie? What colors do you like? And so on. Because as it creates exercises for the students, it uses the students' customizable information within that assignment. So for example, if a student said, my favorite book is Harry Potter, then the student may have a question where it's incorporated the title of that book. So this is a great resource. So when you log in and it looks like this, you'll see your classes that you have listed right here. And then you also have 3 tabs at the top, My Assignment, School Data or Student Data, and Browse and Assign. Let's look at Browse and Assign. And it's going to take you to an assignment library. You will see practice, writing, assessment, standards, and tests. So let's look at the practice. It's the orange circle with the bullseye. And notice that it was also talking about where you could find alignment for Kansas standards. So from the screen, you'll see parts of speech, capitalization and punctuation, sentence phrases and clauses, 5th grade friends, sentences, phrases, and clauses are huge skills within the 5th grade strand. So let's say we're wanting to work with parts of speech. You will see all of these different skills. So if we look right here and we look at appropriate conjunctions, that is a 5th grade skill. Comparative and superlative, that's a 4th grade skill. If we come down here, propositional phrases, again, that's a 4th grade skill. So we can search this way. So let's say I want to do an assignment with conjunctions. If I click on the arrow next to that, it's going to break it down even farther, and notice that it's going to give me some hints. If I look at appropriate conjunctions, identify coordinating conjunctions, which is a skill that 5th graders need to know. I can click to assign, but let's say I want to preview ahead of time. I can come down here to view the lesson or preview the topic. So if I hit view the lesson, it's going to show me how that lesson is going to be taught to students. And if I click preview the topic, it's going to take me to the questions. It says highlight the coordinating conjunction in the sentence. Either Nala will walk the dog this afternoon or I will have to do it later. So students would select or and submit their answers, and then it will give them a self-check. Now, what I really love about this program is that there's a strong alignment in how students are taught this and assessed it, and how students will see it on the state assessment. So if I wanted to go, if I said I want to assign this, I'm going to click to assign. I'm going to come down here, assign the practice. I would choose the class that I want to assign it to. And I could also assign a point value to that assignment. I could put the start date, the due date, and the time that it's due as well. So you can assign lessons. Now, also within this, I'm going to go back up to Browse and Assign. I can also assign an assessment. So I can come down here and I can do a quiz. And I can also do a passage quiz. So if I wanted to do something in context, which research has shown is a great way to do that, I can do that. So we could also do a quiz or passage quiz. So let's go down to passage quiz. And this time let's do sentences, phrases, and clauses. Ooh, subject-verb agreement. So let's say I wanted to preview this passage. We're going to skip the tutorial for right now. So what students are going to do is fix these in the context of the paragraph. So if I look here, in a place so harsh and barren, you may wonder how has penguin survived? Which is it going to be, has or have? So they have to make a determination. Now, if I go back and let's say I wanted to do a quiz instead of a passage quiz, let's come down here. We've been working with conjunctions. And let's say I was working with that fanboys again. Let's say I come down here. I can view my lesson. And then it's going to give me a quiz over that. So then I can come down here and view my quiz. Now, it says, in the sentence here, it gives us, notice that it gives us a shortened sentence instead of seeing items in a paragraph. So within No Red Ink, there are multiple activities that you can assign for grammar practice, and I would really suggest to you, especially if you're a 4th or 5th grade teacher, that you try this in your classroom. It is great practice and alignment to the Kansas State assessment that students will take. So it's as easy as that to get into No Red Ink and start exploring and assigning that to your class. So we just finished going through 2 resources that you could use for helping to teach grammar in your classroom. So the last part of this presentation will focus on some additional information for teaching grammar in your classroom. On the screen you will see 7 grammar sites that you might consider using in your classroom to assist with grammar instruction. You'll see that the bit.ly below will take you to this website that will show you 7 sites that will assist with grammar. So you may want to pause the video and write down that bit.ly and check it out for yourself. So let's think about how we can use these resources. You can use these resources for Center. So perhaps you assign an assignment in NoReady or Grammar or MobyMax rather for your students complete during Center rotations. You can use it for individualized independent practice. You can assign students various tests. You can assign one group of students one skill, assign another group of students another skill, so you can do this based on student need. You can also use these resources for reteach as needed. You could also complete some of these assignments as whole class practice. So let's take a moment to stop, pause, and reflect. We've gone through several resources that you can use to assist with grammar. So were these district resources new to you? How will you use these resources in your classroom? And what questions do you have about using these resources in your classroom? So take a moment to pause the video, reflect, and when you're ready, start the video and proceed to the next slide. So let's look at some of the guiding principles with grammar instruction. First of all, we know that using authentic examples from tests is extremely valuable. If there's a popular book right now that will help you to teach a skill in grammar, we want to use it. Perhaps there's an author that does a great job of using complex sentences. Pull those examples from the text and use those in your instruction. Use grammatical terms, but explain them thoroughly. So for example, we looked earlier at coordinating conjunctions. We want to use that terminology with students, but we want them also to be able to define what is a coordinating conjunction. Give students an opportunity to play with language. On the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see a color-coded map where we have nouns in red, for example, and we have words in green that are nouns. We have zip, which can be a multiple meaning word. And so we want to give students a time to play with these words. Can they form sentences? If you say put the nouns in one category, put the verbs in another, use a sentence with 2 nouns. So giving kids and students a chance to manipulate and play with language is so important. Playing with multiple meaning words and giving them the opportunity to use those words in multiple contexts. Playing with language is a valuable experience not only for younger learners, but for 4th and 5th grade students as well. Giving them a choice of adjectives, for example, or verbs, angry, mad, upset, irate. How do those words change the meaning of a sentence, for example? We don't want to teach grammar in isolation. We want to apply it to writing. So a great way to do that is during writing instruction, and also a great way to model it during that writing instruction. So we want students to see how grammar applies to their writing. Just because a student can do it in isolation and they can circle the nouns or the adverbs doesn't mean that they can apply it to writing. So also model this during your writing instruction. Model how you use solid grammar skills and commas and skills like that to increase your writing efficiency and proficiency. Many lessons at the beginning of writing are critical. Teaching students comparative and superlative, and then telling them that in their writing you would like them to use a comparative or superlative. It's application that's essential in teaching writing and grammar skills. So we also know that students need a chance to play with that language, not only applying it, but you know what? How can we teach grammatical Go Fish as a game? Using Mad Libs. Mad Libs are a great way to play with language and to see if you say noun, do students know what those are, and are they able to give you a noun? Pin the tail on the sentence is a great activity. So you give students an adjective. Where's it going to go in that sentence? It's a takeoff on pin the tail on the donkey. Parts of speech detective. Giving students a newspaper or an article. Can you find the adjectives? And with younger students, you might actually give them magnifying glasses and things like that to use. A grammar scavenger hunt. And find the teacher's mistake. Sometimes I would purposely put a mistake on the board to see if students can find it. Sometimes when we're busy, though, writing and talking at the same time, sometimes we accidentally put a mistake up, and I loved it when students could find those. It showed that students were able to see it and apply it. So let's take a moment to pause, stop, and reflect about this section of the presentation. Was there an aha for you from this presentation? What will be your takeaways and what will you use immediately in your classrooms? So think about our learning during this presentation. What's really resonating with you? What are you excited to learn about in this presentation and try with your students? Where do you feel empowered? And where do you want to expand your knowledge? So let's end this presentation by reviewing our learning intentions and success criteria. Were you able to learn the grammar skills for your students in your grade level or levels and resources to teach it? Can you list specific grammar skills for the grade levels or level you teach? Do you know the district resources for grammar? And can you list ways to effectively teach grammar? My name is Robin Dixon, and it has been an absolute pleasure to present this session to you about grammar-aligned skills to the state standards. And should you have any questions or concerns and wish to speak further, you will see my email and my telephone number. And again, I just want to thank you for listening to this session and hope you gained something new as you were listening.